Hello, I'm Chris Williams from Read Comics They're Bad For You, the name of my YouTube channel. Or if you're watching this on BitChute, the name of my BitChute channel is Comic Freak. Cliff Baczynski blames the failure of lawbreakers on politics and gender-neutral bathrooms. At least that's what the lamestream media are misconstruing his words when he made a statement recently. In that statement, Cliff Baczynski says his game Lawbreakers failed because he made it too woke, so therefore no one wanted to buy it because it was a lame mess. And the lamestream media are up in arms about it because it makes their narrative look bad, so they're trying to destroy him. So let's read his statement and see what's up and why people are after him now. Dude, huge tank. Hang it in the garage. Ironic, the sign got kinda messed up in transport, ain't it? Ever since the studio closed, I've been whacking my brain. What could I have done differently? Pivot hard when the juggernaut of Overwatch was announced? Been less nice with my design ideas and more of a dictator with them? One big epiphany I had was that I pushed my own personal political beliefs in a world that was increasingly divided. And I can see how that would make your game fail, but as I understand it, Lawbreakers had a lot of problems, not just because of any political bias you put into it. It was a rather badly made game. He goes on to say, instead of the story being this game looks neat, it became this is the game with the woke bro trying to push his hacky politics on us with gender-neutral bathrooms instead of these characters seem fun. It was this is the studio with the CEO who refuses to make his female characters sexier instead of who am I going to choose? It became. White dude shoehorns diversity in his game and then smells his own smug farts in interviews. Instead of just letting the product speak for itself. It's okay to be political when your company or studio is established. Not really. For a great product first, but we were unproven and then I regret doing it. He goes on to say this is going to be quite a quote he's going to do in his upcoming book when he writes it. That's fine when he writes it, but because he made this statement, the lamestream media have misconstrued his words and taken them out of context, and we're going to read what they're saying about him now. In a couple of articles. The post makes no mention of the poor marketing the game received or the fact that it was a fairly generic shooter whose heroes made painfully awkward catchphrases. Instead, Baczynski talks about politics. It was his insertion of woke politics into the game that turned people off, he argues, writing, one big epiphany I had was that I pushed my own personal political beliefs in a world that was increasingly divided. He continues, instead of the story being this game looks neat, it became this game with the woke bro trying to push his haggy politics on us. With gender-neutral bathrooms, instead of these characters seem fun, it was this is the studio with the CEO who refuses to make his female characters sexier. Instead of who am I going to choose, it became white dude shoehorns diversity in his game and then smells his own smug farts in interviews, instead of just letting the product speak for itself. I'm not sure about you, but I don't remember hacky politics in Lawbreakers, let alone gender-neutral bathrooms. Were there bathrooms in the game? I guess the few times I played I was too busy shooting and getting shot at to notice. Did the studio really try to not make its female characters too sexy? Well, for one thing, they're all in big, bulky armor, and the one in blue armor who looks like a big butch woman looks like a ripoff of one of the Overwatch characters. But all in all, they look more generic than less sexy, and that could have been a big problem, because a lot of people like sexy girls, you know. Well, I guess that's one true enough. They're all in armor and none are running around in thongs and bikini tops. But again, that's not something I ever considered while playing or covering the game. Until now, I doubt many people did, outside perhaps a very small contingent of gamers. See how this game journalist is basically being flippant? He's misconstruing Cliff Baczynski's words in the fact that he seems to be focusing on hacky politics and the fact that his characters aren't sexy enough. And in reality, Baczynski said that he should have focused more on getting his ideas down and getting his product out, as well as not putting too many agenda politics into the game itself. Lawbreakers had plenty of problems. It wasn't as good as Overwatch, a game which has mostly dominated the hero shooter category since launch. It came right out as PUBG and Fortnite were taking the world by storm, which is why Boss Key rushed Radical Heights out the door, half-baked and half-conceptualized, though potentially fun with more TLC. More than anything, it wasn't just very fun, it was okay at best, but it needed to be better. Honestly, there just wasn't a market for it. I think interest in hero shooters was vastly overblown, and companies like Boss Key and even Tyac, which took Call of Duty way too far in that direction, were suckered into it. Meanwhile, nobody was leaving Battle Royale games or Overwatch to play Lawbreakers. Partly that's a bad timing, partly that's bad execution. Very little blame can be shouldered by the game's political messaging. It's an online competitive shooter, for goodness sakes. There was hardly a story to follow. And I basically think we've come to the crux of the problem with this particular article. The writer here says there was very little blame can be shouldered by the game's political messaging. And yet the media keeps bringing it up, misconstruing Cliff Bleszinski's words and basically trying to debunk his story because they fear that he's actually telling the truth and that their narrative is basically just bunk. So they're going to work their asses off to try and debunk Cliff Bleszinski and try to make him look like a fool or an idiot because they don't want him speaking the truth about how putting political messages and agenda politics in the games basically just ruins them because these trash websites with these articles and journalists, they practically run on this sort of thing. But if it comes out that it's all just bunk, well, most likely in the future, no one would probably go to these websites or listen to any of these writers again. So they're going to work up as much vitriol and as much energy as possible to try and debunk Cliff Bleszinski because they don't want him to keep speaking the truth. Here's another article we'll be looking at, and I'll just start us right off into it. Be honest with yourself when you think of Lawbreakers, the debut game from Gears of War creator Cliff Bleszinski, now defunct studio. What do you remember about it? For me, I remember a very generic-looking shooter that had a man in it who could shoot backwards. I also remember the reason it was called Lawbreakers wasn't because you went around breaking the law. It was because this was a shooter where one team played as the law and one team played as the breakers. Clearly, this was the height of creativity. The game was crushed under the weight of Fortnite and the Battle Royale craze, so much so that the studio boss key made a clumsy pivot to the genre and released an unfinished Battle Royale game in Radical Heights. It wasn't radical and it certainly wasn't a high point for anyone. It was badical. What a horrible writer. Badical. Of course you'd say that. Then the writer just basically insults Cliff Bleszinski with a grown man who calls himself Dude Huge, presumably after his massive effing ego, is reflecting on the performance of his studio and its subsequent closure. The real problems? It was woke and it didn't have enough Cliff Bleszinski in it. Notice how the writer basically has it written like it's all Cliff's ego. How he says it's the real problem, it was woke. When in reality, he took a look at Overwatch and knew his own game couldn't compete against it or the other Battle Royale games. And he also basically knew his agenda politics wouldn't help it at all. Then the writer goes on and basically makes a few jokes trying to disparage Cliff Bleszinski. Won't someone think of the gamer boners? Please someone, my boner is dying. Basically trying to, well, basically make it look silly and basically make Bleszinski look silly. And then he says, no doubt this post will empower the Get Woke Go Broke crowd, and that's clearly the plan here. Why mention his upcoming book if this wasn't a misguided attempt at promoting it? Well, if the past 10 years have taught us anything, Dude Huge, it's that people who want this crowd as their fan base ultimately are the ones who have to live with them enjoy it. And the writer basically throws everybody who's Go Woke, Go Broke under the bus with Cliff Bleszinski, saying that they're all the same. He's trying to paint us all as bad people here when he clearly makes these jokes and basically trying to win the argument by just making these jokes, when in reality he's just making nonsense. Let's look at some tweets Cliff Bleszinski has made on what's happening. Over the years, websites knew this and have willfully played along, twisting my words from interviews, i.e. I love Kojima and his games, but the cutscenes can be a bit long, becomes Blitzky slams Kojima. Then he says, there is this chunk of the internet and gamers that no matter what I ever say or do or have said or done are determined to hate my guts and twist my words into something they can spew vitriol over until the end of time. As you can see from the articles as well as Cliff Bleszinski's own statements here, the media clearly doesn't like him and will do anything in their power to twist his words and try to make him look as bad as possible. If you like this video, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed because YouTube is going around unsubscribing people, so make sure you're still subscribed. If you're watching my videos but you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Read Comics, They're Bad For You. Then go over to BitChute and subscribe to my BitChute channel, Comic Freak. If you're watching this on Library when I have this video up and running on it, thank you for subscribing. hit that bell for notifications, hit that like button, and leave some comments down below. And if you could you also please share this video? Share it on Twitter, share it on Reddit, and share it on Facebook. Share it anywhere you think it'll do the most good, because YouTube is not going around promoting their own YouTube careers anymore. So please share this video. Now listen closely. Keep checking back in all my future videos for more information on my own upcoming independent comic book scumdogs. I'm Chris Williams, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another video or review.